Good morning. Today is Tuesday, the 23rd of August at 11:06. That's 6 minutes past 11 in the morning. I'm getting close to midday. Just a quick video. Well, not really quick because stuff like this you can't just blow through in 5 minutes. It's just about the last council meeting that I went to with a few others last week on Wednesday the 13th of August. Interesting, but very mundane at the same time. Interesting comment was brought up by a Ken Park. I believe he was an ex-mayor from a New South Wales council, so he's got a bit of an idea of what council should be doing. So I've included a portion of the council video stream which was recorded on the day in this video, so we'll have a look at what Ken Park has to say, and then the response by the CEO, which was rather interesting. I'll go on more about that afterwards, so bear with me, try and watch the video till the end. I know a lot of people have got a short attention span, but stuff like this is important, and like I said, you can't just blow through it in 5 minutes. So let's get into it and have a look. Okay, good morning. I'm just out here at the Bribie Island RSL. Came down for my first community council meeting. Interesting stuff. Some things were raised by local. Council just brushed it off, of course, as they do. Reality hurts. I'm sure council do some good things, but a lot of cases they don't. And things need to be queried, so we'll just go from there. I took some notes, I'll have a look through them, and yeah, have a look what else we can find out and what's going on. Although I did hear about the new water pipes going in from the Weir Road sewage treatment plant under the Caboolture River up the rail trail to the old quarry at Moodloo, just in the area where I used to live. It's designed to then pump that treated water out to the farms, which is quite interesting and something that I think is a good thing. But apart from that, we'll get back home and look at the notes and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, second speaker we have today is Mr. Park. I welcome Mr. Park to the front desk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning. Some time ago, we elected 13 councillors to represent us, councillors to whom we pay quite reasonable salaries, councillors who, in the opinion of some ratepayers, are not quite doing the job that they were elected to do. There is a duty statement for councillors. In fact, it is the law. And all that I'm about to ask is that councillors perform their duty according to the law. Section 4 of the Local Government Act demands that, in order that the system of local government is accountable, effective and sustainable, the Parliament of Queensland requires that anyone who is performing a responsibility under the Act, that is both councillors and staff, must do so in accordance with the local government principles. And I'm going to read these 5 principles directly from the Act, and might I respectfully ask that councillors might try to memorise these. The 5 local government principles are: Principle A, transparent and effective processes, decision-making in the public interest. The public interest. Principle B is about sustainable development and the management of assets, and perhaps we can save that for a later day. Principle C, democratic representation and meaningful community engagement. I'll read that again. Democratic representation and meaningful community engagement. Principle D is about good governance, and Principle E is about ethical and legal behaviour of councillors and staff. In addition to those principles, councillors and staff each have a specific section of the Act that legally requires them to do certain things. Section 12 applies to the councillors. Listen carefully, this is your duty statement. A councillor must represent the current and future interests of the residents of the local government area, not the interests of the business community, not the interests of a political party, not the interests of developers, not the interests of the state government, not the interests of council staff, not the interests of tourists, not the interests of any lobby group. Our councillors must represent the interests of the residents of the Moreton Bay region, and that is us, and nobody else's interests. And note also that each councillor must represent the interests of all residents, not just those of their own division. In addition to memorising the 5 local government principles, it could also be appropriate that at the start of each council meeting that councillors be asked to recite this legally binding code. Perhaps they could all stand and say, "I must represent the current and future interests of all residents of Moreton Bay and no other interests." Ladies and gentlemen, these are not motherhood statements. They're not just pious words that sound good. They are the law. So how's this working in practice? 2 particular council decisions have attracted my interest. In the first, which was a development application, there were 686 formal objections, plus another 47 that were not compliant. The staff report occupied 32 pages in the meeting business paper, and the objections occupied another 1,100 pages. 1,100. Did any councillors actually read all of what the residents were complaining about? Was the process transparent? How can you know if it was in the public interest if you didn't read what the public objected to? How meaningful was the public engagement when there actually wasn't any? And how could the interests of the residents be represented when those interests were not actually considered? And now, councillors want us to be renamed as a city. If there is is there one person in the room that thinks that there has been meaningful community consultation? Is there any person in this room who truly believes that the analysis of the so-called consultation has been statistically valid or statistically significant? If the conclusions that councillors are making from the analysis is knowingly statistically invalid, then you're not really acting transparently and you're not acting in the public interest. You're engaging in poor governance. There is, as we all know, only one absolutely reliable guide to knowing the real interests of the residents. It is called a referendum. Councillors, it's not too late to again read sections 4 and 12 of the Local Government Act, to take these sections of the law into your hearts and to find out the real interests of the residents of the whole region on this and every other matter that comes before the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Park.
Thank you, Ken, very much. Again, I might make some comments about your presentation. It's overly simplistic to, I think, limit the role of councillors to looking after the current and future interest of the current residents, and that's not what the Act says. These councillors have a very complicated job to do, and there's a whole lot of legislation around their role. And I'll talk a little bit about the Planning Act in one of the examples with the development assessment. So it is not as simple a matter, I think, of the councillors being obliged to listen to the views of current residents about their views. Their obligation under the Local Government Act is to look after the current and the future interests of current and future residents. So we often, the councillors I know often talk about, they are looking after the interests of the almost 500,000 residents across the region at the moment, but in the next 20 years we'll have another 200,000 people. So their obligation under the Local Government Act is to think about the interests of the 700,000 or the 900,000, or projecting into the future those people as well. So it's a little bit more complicated, I think, perhaps than listening to the current views of current people. And I don't mean to be offensive, Ken, but I think that's the lay of the land in terms of the law. In terms of the development application, again, the Planning Act and the planning framework provides a framework for which councils must make decisions. So again, that's not a matter of just listening to views of some residents. That is a matter of complying with the local government's planning scheme and the whole process of engagement with the development industry, the process of getting submissions in and assessing those submissions and considering that within the context of the planning scheme. And the planning scheme has some obligations too. In terms of the city consultation, that research is statistically significant in our professional view. There's a report that was attached to the council paper on the decision, and I've forgotten the date of council's decision on that, back in July, that I'd encourage residents to read, and that report is with the Minister at the moment. That evidence concluded that 49% of people were in favour, 45% of people against, and 6% of people undecided, across a range of engagement. My final comment is about meaningful community engagement. This council has the most significant community engagement process of any council in Australia, as we've been advised by the CSIRO. CSIRO subsidiary called Voconic do the Morton Says survey that you would have hopefully all seen and participated in. That's a 3-year program by this council to consult meaningfully with our communities 3 or 4 times a year on all sorts of issues, and we've been doing that across planning matters, environmental matters, community engagement matters, and Voconic, who run that process, said that is the most significant amount of community engagement they've ever seen a local government commit to. So I think I should just put that on the record as well. But thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. CEO, for some of those comments. Next up, we have notice of the motions.
Well, there you go. Obviously, the comments or the questioning, etc., was directed at councillors and also the mayor, of course, because he's a councillor as well. Now, I find it strange that the CEO had to answer. Now, if someone asked me a question directly, or to me if I'm there or about me, then it would be up to me to answer that, not somebody else. So it just begs the question, what is the role of the CEO, and why are they hiding behind legislation, or make it appear like they're hiding behind legislation or following legislation or so on, when obviously to me there is a bit of a grey zone there, and maybe some things yes and other things no. So I don't think that answer is good enough, especially coming from the CEO. The mayor should have answered that, or they should have had a few councillors answer that. Now, as a long-term resident of Caboolture, I've been here since 1982, and I've seen the place change a lot. I'm not that happy about what's been happening the last, 10 plus years or so. There is no councillor engagement, not that I know of. All we seem to get is this stuff in the letterbox, hear it from Hayne. It's just generic councillor waffle, letting us know where they spend money or waste money. A lot of it is waste, a lot of it is waffle. Where are the local council meetings with the councillor on a regular basis? Where is that? And the CEO went on about this Morton Says survey, which I've taken part in several times, and to me it's sort of like there's no choice. There's not much you can actually input into it. It sort of seems to be prearranged with answers which don't really suit maybe what you want. So it's just another example of money wasting by engaging large surveying companies, and also the CSIRO. Who knows how much that costs. It's not at a grassroots level. It's not local. Now the councillors have a responsibility to the people in their division and to everyone else in the region. Now I don't like that term region, because as far as I'm concerned, this council area is way too big. And then they want city status. It's still mostly rural or semi-rural areas, along those lines. Now, that's not city. So what they need to do, in my books, is cut the council off, become more accountable, have more community engagement, not through this stupid survey, but actually get councillors to get out there and listen and table what the people of their division want. That's the idea of a democracy. We elect them to represent us, regardless of whatever the legislation is. Because in reality, a democracy is we own the area, the land, the region, the state. We elect our representatives to do our bidding. Now, these people seem to forget that and hide behind legislation. Legislation can be changed, and it has to be. So before I waffle on too long, that's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. If you'd like to share your opinion, there's always a comment section below. Get in touch on Facebook, email, whatever. Come meet up at Moddy's when we're doing it. This is about community engagement and bringing democracy and accountability back to our local government, because it's supposed to be local, but it isn't. It's supposed to be accountable, but it isn't. Same with the state government. Look what's been happening. I think the current Labor government we've got in there now is the worst in the history of, Queensland. That's all I got to say on that. Ken Parks is right. Oh, Ken Park is right. He hit the nail on the head. The response from the CEO was not up to scratch, as far as I'm concerned. He shouldn't have even answered. So we'll just leave it at that, and maybe do some more digging into it later on. So, yeah, like I said, look me up on Facebook. Links in the section just below this video here, and leave a comment. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, let me know why, and we'll try and look at other points of view. That's what it's all about. Alright, got a bit of a rant there, but that's the way it goes. Till the next video.